So welcome to Driving with Miranda on Auto Guide. I'm Miranda Lightstone, an auto journalist, and this week I am sitting in the 2022 Genesis G70 3.3T Sport. As you can see, it seems like a fairly luxurious sedan, and it is. So the Genesis brand, for those who don't know, stems from Hyundai. Now, they've done everything in their power to separate themselves from Hyundai only because they really wanted to make a luxury name for themselves. And truthfully, the only downfall to this car, and it's a terrible thing to say, truthfully, is its name. The thing that hurts it the most is the fact that it has that Genesis badge. And it's not actually a bad thing. It's just a misconception that people have because of the association with a company like Hyundai, which in itself isn't a bad company, but it's not up there with the Audis and the Mercedes and the Porsches and the BMWs of the world, which is where Genesis is placing itself. This is a strong contender for every luxury European brand that you can think of. This vehicle stacks up perfectly against it in terms of performance, in terms of interior amenities, in terms of design. Everything about this car is on par, except for the price. So this particular car starts at $59,000, and this thing is loaded, and it's so comfortable to drive. Or it can be as sporty as you want it to drive, depending on what you're looking for. And that's the beauty of this thing. It goes from comfortable touring sedan to track-ready sports car, like that. I have all my drive modes down here so I can change it up at will when I'd like to. And it just has this really spirited way of driving if you want it to, of course. And I have the all-wheel drive, so you know, I don't, it's a rear bias, I think, until you need the all-wheel drive to kick in. And it also has, so it gets the numbers out of the way, that obviously has a 3.3 liter V6 twin turbo, which is good for 380 something horsepower, I believe, or maybe 368. And then in the 350s for torque as well. Really nice transmission. It's an automatic. Sad thing is, when the Genesis G70 first launched in 2019, it was available with a manual transmission. Now it's not the case. No more manual here, but that's okay because the automatic is actually really nice, and I have paddle shifters if I would like to shift my own gears. But you know what, truthfully, I've let this thing do its own job all week, and it's been fantastic. From cruising on the highway to windy country roads to suburban streets. Like I said, this thing can go from comfortable tour to ready for the track in seconds, and it depends on how you drive it, and it depends on what mode you have it in, and it really just depends on the type of drive that you want to have in this vehicle. And I think that's really important because this Genesis brand is as much kind of performance as it is luxury and comfort and amenities. You know, if we think about the Genesis name when it was under the Hyundai badge, the Genesis Coupe was their sporty racer boy vehicle. So now that that name lives on its own, not only does it imply that there's a performance aspect to this, but it also lets you know that, you know, it's luxury as well. And I mean, look at these quilted seats. They're gorgeous. I mean, Genesis did an amazing job designing this car inside and out. Just the little things, like even on the radio, like the way the radio stations are displayed, there's little like Edison light bulbs. It's just those little design elements, and like the quilting on the doors and the buttons on the seat that let me move the passenger seat forwards and backwards without having to get out. Just tiny little things. Oh, and even in my gauge cluster, if I use my turn signal, I at first thought it was very distracting, but now I can't imagine not driving without it. There's a little video that pops up, so it displays from underneath the side view mirrors. It gives you that view out and behind. So I found after like the first day of having it pop up in the gauge cluster, I got used to doing a 3-point check instead of just a 2-point check when I was changing lanes. So check my rear view, check my blind spot, look down at the gauge cluster, because now I've got that little video there and it gives me an even wider view of my blind spot, and I really loved using it. So it doesn't normally when there's little nannies like that, you think it might make you a worse driver, but in actual fact, this one helps you see more and in a way helps you be a better driver because you make those 3-pointed checks. Now, in terms of power and comfort, again, this thing has great pickup. I actually really love the way it sounds. With the windows down, that V6 sounds really nice. It has a hearty grumble to it. It's not obnoxious. It's not in your face. This isn't this isn't the STI of the world. But you can tell that this has a solid engine and that it's there to perform. And I like that about it. In terms of the suspension, depending on what mode you have it in, I've got it in sport right now, so it's tightened it up a little bit. But if you put it in comfort mode, again, this thing becomes a Grand Tour, and it's just super comfortable in the front and the back. My son had plenty of room back there, especially with me being able to move the seat for him. He loved the quilted seats. He's got a decent amount of headroom. I could see if you've got like 4 large adults in here, like not my size, but like normal sized adults, the back seat might get a little bit squishy and a little bit tight. The roofline does go down quite a bit. Trunk space, great amount of trunk space back there. That is a cavernous trunk. It was perfect for all of our weekly activities, fitting a scooter in there, all of the groceries, all the things. So it's a practical performing vehicle if that's what you want it to be. And I think Genesis really hit that balance with this particular model. Now that is the G70, so there is the G80, which is the larger saloon, so this is the smaller sedan. But even though it's smaller, like I said, I feel like there's plenty of room in here, and I love the cockpit. I love everything is driver centric. Everything's really at hand, easy to get to. Now I'm again, the worst thing about this vehicle, and it is a terrible thing to say, is its name. Because if you're all about that logo and about that prestige that comes with owning a specific brand of car, and all your neighbors have those other brands, and then you show up with this, and you feel like you're just, you're not playing the same game, well, you are. 100% you are. And once people realize that, and this thing gets a lot of attention on the road, like a lot, basically because of its exterior design. People aren't sure what it is. Is it a Mercedes? Is it an Audi? Like, what is this? Like, the headlights are super unique, and the tail lights as well. Just the overall look of the car grabs their attention, and I think they're shocked when they see, first of all, the symbol on the front, not quite sure with the wings and the G, and then they read Genesis across the back, and you can see they kind of like, it's this look of surprise, like, oh, okay. And it takes a moment for them to realize what it is. And I've had questions like, Genesis, is that like the same Genesis as Hyundai? And I have to say, yeah. And they're like, oh. And there's that momentary like, oh, well, then obviously it can't be that nice. And then we get discussing and realize that, hold on a second, it is actually that nice. So all in all, I think it's a great car. I think it's going to take a little bit more time for this brand and this name to make a name for itself where it needs to be and where it wants to be, but it will get there because of the quality of the product, because of the build, because of the design, and because of the drivability. So the inside of the Genesis G70 is an absolutely stunning place to be. I mean, from this diamond quilted red leather to everything being really nice and soft touch. I have contrast stitching, so anywhere there's red leather on the dash, I have black stitching. Where I have the black, I have the red stitching. I've got these nice chromed inserts in here. I have a fantastic sound system. Everything is at hand in the center stack here. I love this nice wide touchscreen. Super responsive, very easy to use. Plus I have my nice big buttons down here. If I don't feel like fiddling with the touchscreen, I can get everything there. I like the little shifter. It's a little bit stubby and it feels like the BMW, so you just press the button and you're kind of selecting. You're not going through the gears like you would, like a park neutral drive, whatever, which is fine. I have a really nice big charge pad down here too. And of note, it has a rubber cover so your phone won't slide around for those more spirited driving adventures. And in this car, you're going to have those adventures, so I could see why they put it there. I also have a USB port, a good size armrest down here. It's kind of shallow, but nice and wide, so it fits everything that you would need in there. My favorite feature up here, truthfully, and you can't see it on here because obviously the passenger doesn't need to do it, but on the passenger seat, I can move the seat forward, backwards, and change the angle of the backrest from here, from this side, instead of having to try and like reach over. So for the times when Owen has gotten in the back and maybe the car is, you know, the seat's too far back and my feet don't fit, and I've either had to get out and get around and do the whole electric thing or reach over and try and do it manually. But here I have the buttons right there in front of me, so I can adjust the seat accordingly, which I really like. It's a small little detail, but one that you don't find often in other cars. And you know what? It just proves that Genesis has taken this luxury, comfortable drive to a whole other level. That's the touring side of this vehicle. Now, if you look at the sport performance side of this vehicle on the inside, the bolsters here are great. I can adjust everything. I can make it tighter. I can loosen it up. I have lumbar support. I can adjust this in like 5 million different ways, not that many, but a lot. And it's just, everything is at hand. You know, I'm not a big person, but I don't feel like I'm lost in this vehicle, and I can adequately change all the settings so that I feel like everything's exactly where I need it to be. And if I was on a track, or if I was driving it more spiritedly, I would not feel like I was flopping around in this, you know, larger sedan. It's just really well put together. There's barely any gaps or holes inside and out. Everything is just really, really well constructed. It feels like it's gonna last. It feels like it's not gonna start rattling anytime soon. I love the feeling of the knobs. You know, it's that chunky click. Nothing sounds cheap. Even when the door closes, you get that nice junk. You know, it's just, everything about this vehicle proves what Hyundai was trying to get across in their message a couple of years ago when the Genesis brand first launched. And I think they've come to this kind of pinnacle in luxury, especially with the interior and the exterior design. This thing is stunning. You know, I get looks everywhere I go. People aren't quite sure what they're looking at. And I think that's really important for Genesis to create that name for themselves. You know, the Genesis logo on the front is really apparent. You know, they've got that really nice angled slope in the hood that points down to the Genesis logo. It says Genesis nice and big across the back. They're really taking their name and making something of it on the road and making people take notice. Now, normally I wouldn't like a silver car, but there's something about this color with the big black grille, and those slit headlights are just stunning on this, with the mimicked rear lights as well. Everything about this sedan, the silhouette, is completely it's performance driven, it's sexy, and it's a stunning vehicle, nose to tail, in whatever color. I think if it was white, black, gray, red, whatever it is, the gray with this red interior is just mint. They've done a really, really good job with this G70. All right, guys, well, that's been it for me this week in the Genesis G70 3.3T Sport. Thanks so much for checking it out. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, you can hit me up on Twitter at Miss Miranda L. That's the same for Instagram, and Facebook.com Miranda Lightstone. Hope to see you guys back at the next episode. Have a safe week.